Good morning, everybody. It's 6 a.m. in Washington, D.C. on this Thursday, July 6, 2023. You're looking live at the White House as the Secret Service has ordered DNA and fingerprint testing of the small bag of cocaine found in what is referred to as a heavily trafficked lobby area in the West Wing on Sunday night about 6 o'clock.
Right. Reuters reports that the White House is now checking visitor logs. Republicans are demanding a Secret Service briefing on the investigation into who the drugs belong to.
Meanwhile, Politico says that a law enforcement source suggests it's going to be very difficult, even with surveillance cameras, to track down the person who left the cocaine. Sounds a lot like that Supreme Court leaker, right?
Exactly like it. And Brian, we are so lucky today to actually have on the curvy couch Kayleigh McEnany, who worked in the West Wing for a good portion of American history. And so you can help us figure out what's going on. To start with, this heavily trafficked area, we just showed, the West Wing with the Marine Guard outside the very familiar gate. That's not the door we're talking about, is it?
No, so if you're looking at the White House there, if you're looking at it directly, over to the right, there is an entrance between the old executive office building, which is where the younger employees work, the vast majority of employees, and the West Wing. There is a road in between called West Executive, and there is a tent coming out of the West Wing. A lot of people go through there. Staff goes through there. The press does not, so you can rule out the press at this point. Guests of staff go through there. My mom's been through there. My dad, my husband,
Was
my
she
daughter
there Sunday night?
No, we did not bring cocaine with us when my family paraded through there. But it is a heavily trafficked area. There are cubbies there. I've got to believe this was discovered rather quickly because there's a Secret Service officer sitting right there.
Right there.
So it couldn't have been there for days and days. It had to have been there for, I would say, minutes before someone took notice.
So let's think about this. Between the illegitimate child they don't want to acknowledge in Arkansas, they want to take questions on that. He doesn't want to take questions on the ongoing investigation into the plea bargain for Hunter Biden. He doesn't want to take questions into why Hunter Biden is everywhere, despite the sweetheart plea deal that he had. Now Joe Biden's got to dodge questions about a package of cocaine in his White House. And I know he'd love to say it was there and Donald Trump left it behind, but that won't fly. Look at this awkward smile.
Yeah.
So embarrassing. Think about the Swedish presidents there trying to lobby to get into NATO. But this chicanery is not handled by anyone in the press department. It's certainly not handled by the president himself. He doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't send anybody out to handle it. He just wants it to go away by walking away from the press over and over again.
But he should care about this because one under-discussed fact here. The President of the United States walks through that very entrance quite often. His motorcade can be in two places, and that is one of the two places. I've watched President Trump walk through that very area right by cubbyholes a lot of times. So where's the emphatic response from the president? This will not be tolerated. To one reporter's point, Weisha pointed out from CBS, hey guys, like this could have been anthrax.
Absolutely, and that's why the hazmat team showed up and they go, oh, it's not anthrax, it's only cocaine. And it's like, wait, it's cocaine. Of course, as soon as the news ricocheted through Washington, D.C., and there's, Kayleigh, you were talking about the old executive office building. That's the Eisenhower building to the right there. And then the entrance is between the two. As soon as the news came out on Sunday night into Monday, people are thinking, oh, cocaine, it's obviously Hunter related. And, yesterday the White House was very specific in saying family members, guests of family members go in the East Wing. It's not like they would come through the West Wing, so as to diminish that, the rumor that it was somehow related to Hunter Biden. But unfortunately, because it's cocaine, people are thinking Hunter Biden, thinking about the president and the weird situation.
I don't see how that's possible. Look, Karine Jean-Pierre gave us no information whatsoever. I would have gone to Secret Service saying, guys, I cannot go to the press without some sort of information.
Give me a line.
Location.
Give me one line.
Yeah, well, her one line
so to
is
speak.
She says, I've got something to share. The president and the first lady and the family were not here this weekend. That's
Right.
not news. We all knew that.
Right.
And for it to be Hunter Biden, he left on Friday. He was at Camp David. There is no way. It is inconceivable to think cocaine could sit for a 72-hour period. So I would rule him out at this point.
All right,
Absolutely.
so remember when Joe Biden was big into cracking down on crime? I miss those days. The year was 1991, and when he thought, hypothetically, what happens if cocaine is found with someone or left somewhere? Well, what about crack?
If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice.
Okay, those were the good old days when it came to that kind of enforcement. You know what the current restriction is? You know what the penalty is right now if you are caught with cocaine in D.C.? Because now it's a Schedule II. It's a misdemeanor, essentially. And so, but the search is on to try to figure out who exactly it was. But I was thinking about it like this. Because the first family was gone, who could it possibly have been? And you know that there are a lot of staff members who bring people in on Sunday night. There were tours on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night as well. Could it be a donor? Could it be a staff member? Could it be a member of an influential union aligned with the president? And it's like, hey, I'm in town. Can I get a tour? Sure. Put your stuff right there.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody
in the cubby hole.
Yeah, I know.
Put your phone in the other one.
I was talking
Got
to
plenty of room.
I was talking to somebody in federal law enforcement down in D.C. yesterday, who's been in the White House many times, and they said they were speculating. My first thought was that it was a 26-year-old on a Tinder date, and they say like, "Hey, you want to see the White House?" Because there are apparently. There is a list. The usher's office has a list of VIPs who go in that door, but it's not in the official electronic wave system, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the media, it's funny. They think it's a laughing matter that a undisclosed, unknown powder was feet from the president of the United States, potentially. Watch.
They're kind of blaming it on the tourists.
On the tourists?
The public area?
Yes, are people careless with their cocaine? I mean,
It's an expensive drug.
so many questions there. A
lot of questions.
We are not quite to the Jimmy Carter level where multiple officials in the White House are in trouble and one person resigned, but
And I don't want to hear from President Biden or Trump. I would like to hear from one person in particular.
Who?
That Bill that used to sit on Capitol Hill from Schoolhouse Rock.
I would like to know blow by blow who was responsible for this.
Too soon.
There's no too soon on this. No one was injured, as far as we know. And it's an illicit drug at the White House. Why can't you actually have a bit of fun with it?
I can't even fathom anything like this having been found before in the West Wing, and I go back to the 70s at the White House. So this is pretty wild.
Well, there are a lot of lines out there being used, so to speak, but the big question is whether or not they will figure out who it was. Obviously, they've got the evidence, and if they could do fingerprint or DNA analysis, they would know who that person is, but then the question becomes, does that person's name become public?
And they should know who's coming in and out, because the press, at Pebble Beach it's called, they have all their cameras there, and there's normally a camera right on that door. I knew if I walked out that door, I'd be on a camera somewhere.
Right. Just got to wonder if that was a Trump situation, what would be going on? What has Trump done to defile the White House? Now you got cross-dressers taking off their tops on the White House lawn at a major event. You got cocaine. And all you have is a president that doesn't want to talk to the press and a press secretary that says absolutely nothing of substance to the press. Yep. And I guess that's okay.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.